Good afternoon. I'm Tim McGinnis. Thanks for joining us today for our conversation. Really, the purpose of our conversation today is to talk about the business and the marketplace implications around IT and data infrastructure and where EMC fits into that world. So the first question anybody wants to know is, what is EMC and what do they do? Well, they develop, they deliver, and they support IT and data infrastructure via virtual systems. So what does that mean? What are they protecting? Well, they're protecting a company's information, which is their most important asset. So really what the need for this is, EMC really wants to help a company lower their total cost of ownership by meeting and exceeding IT challenges. And the problem with the IT world right now is, as challenges grow and as the marketplace continues to grow at an exponential rate, people aren't keeping up with it, and they're getting left by not only their competitors, but they're spending most of their money actually maintaining their current infrastructure, and they're not growing. So we'll get into that more as we get along. But really, so what does EMC do, and how do they help people overcome this problem? Well, what they do is they store, manage, and protect your information. They're in three segments. They're in information storage, information intelligence, and RSA security. And essentially what they want to do is help a company lower their total cost of ownership and meet and exceed these challenges. So I'm going to start with an analogy that helps me really understand how EMC can help a company and what it is they do. So I was born in 1981, I grew up, and music is a big deal to me. I grew up listening to the tapes. And then in the 1990s, 20 years ago, CDs came along. And then really what happened was, I started, once I got into college, listening to music via MP3s on my computer. And then in the past 5 years, it's been on my phone. And very recently, it's been on my tablet. And what the tablet does is it actually connects everything via something called a cloud that manages both your phone, your computer, your phone, and I can listen on my tablet. So what is the cloud, and what does it do for organizations? Well, really what the cloud is it pulls together and it aggregates information, whether it's storage, whether it's networks, or whether it's servers. It aggregates a company's information so that when they need that information, they can apply it any way they want to. So really, what we're going to talk about throughout this conversation is how EMC helps companies become more scalable, more flexible, more agile, more efficient, and at the end of the day, offers them uncompromised data reduction. And again, how do they do that? So today we're going to talk about three different things. We're going to talk about three mediums. So we're going to have shared storage, we're going to have virtualization, and VMware, and then we're going to talk about flash technology, and really most importantly we're going to talk about the Extreme IO platform and what EMC is helping, how EMC is actually tangibly helping companies reduce this total cost of ownership and help them do these 5 things that we just mentioned. So shared storage. So what is shared storage? Shared storage is a medium by which a company offers via its network information to users at multiple different times simultaneously, all via one hosted storage system. So if I can draw this, you have a shared storage system. This can be any number of people, but via this one system, you have multiple people using that and enabling them to actually tangibly hold all of that data under one thing and access that data without duplicate information. So they can control that anywhere in the world, and that's all via the shared storage model. Now what the shared storage model does, how it's actually broken down, the hardware of it, so it's comprised of storage area networks, which are typically fiber, typically I say, and then it has network attached storage, which is typically Ethernet. All right, and again, what they're doing is it's becoming more scalable because more people are actually using this, It's becoming more flexible for the same reason. But agility is a big one here, and the most important thing is there's less backup because it's all via one system. So there's less backup, there's less hardware because there's less duplication, and then it's increasing their total cost of ownership, or excuse me, lowering total cost of ownership, because with less backup and less hardware, you're spending 50% less. So that's why a company would want to utilize shared storage. So to take that one step further, VMware and virtualization. Well, think of the word itself, virtual. So what virtualization is giving a company, it's a medium to access more of your operating system and your applications when needed, all via something called a virtual machine, or all via actually a host. And what the heart of virtualization is what I just mentioned, is that virtual machine. So it's isolated software for your operating system and your application to do things quicker and more efficiently. So what it's made up of, hyper, and I can't think of the name right now, but hyper means it's comprised of those hypers that are doing things quicker, and essentially what it's doing is, again, it's making it more scalable, so more people can access your information once, agile efficiency, and essentially what it's doing is increasing the actual efficiency because of the usability. Typically what we see in this marketplace is among a company, they're only utilizing about 15% of their actual data via the VMware, and in this case they're up to 80%, so their higher utilization is lowering their total cost of ownership again, and what we're really going to talk about now is this uncompromised data reduction. Alright, so finally we're going to get to the flash technology, and we're going to get to the Extreme I/O platform and why companies would want to utilize that. So what is flash technology? Flash technology is small, quick, rewritable snapshots that function on something we call EEPROMs. So it's electronically erasable, programmable, read-only memory. Alright, so that's what an EEPROM and that's what flash is. Well, if I can talk about kind of the evolution of the flash marketplace, I'm going to do your standard bell curve here. So you're going to have your early adopters, you're going to have your general adopters, and you're going to have your late adopters. So what we've seen in the marketplace over the past 4 to 5 years, really, what we saw is a lot of companies, excuse me, that wanted to go from tape to disk in their backup and recovery marketplace. So once they wanted to go from tape to disk, a lot of companies said, well, disk is a lot quicker, it's more efficient, but it's a little more expensive. So some companies said, all right, we'll do this and we'll make the transition, we'll go to disk. Well, among that, there were about 30 to 50, I mean, the marketplace was pretty flooded. There were about 30 to 50 companies that were helping other companies really go from tape to disk. And over that 4 to 5 years, what happened was we weeded out a couple of the companies, more people went to disk, and what we found was EMC's data domain had upwards of a 60% market share. So among the 2 to 3 companies, with EMC having 60% of the market share, they were blowing the competition away and they'd already weeded everybody else out. And what they did was that uncompromised, data reduction. Very similar to what happened with the tape to disk thing, where we are now is flash. So companies want to go from disk to flash. Now, not all companies can. Again, the limitation is money, but what we're seeing is some companies that have already gone from tape to disk and want to go to disk to flash, and maybe they're doing a hybrid of both, but really most companies just want to get to the flash marketplace, and what EMC is hoping for is this same thing, where the net of everything after we weed out some of the other competition is we get to that 60% market share. Now, since this was rolled out in November of 2013, EMC has the most market share of anybody, and we're trying to get that going further. So I'm going to drill down into what the actual Extreme I/O platform is and how it helps companies really lower their total cost of ownership. So let's talk about the actual hardware itself. So what we're going to build here is what I call a brick. So you got your storage processor 1, you got your storage process 2. They're both what we call active systems. Meaning they're both working at the same time, meaning they're both getting to that uncompromised data reduction and the usability and the actual utilization. That shouldn't say usability, that should say utilization. So active, they're both getting up to 80% utilization rates, which is outstanding in this marketplace. And then on top of that, we're giving them 512 gigabytes of cache. Enormous. That's a mega number right there. And so really what they're doing on top of that is down here, you have enterprise, multi-level cell, flash technology. All right? So what that's doing is giving companies, literally, just more. They can rewrite, they can program, I'll get into that in a couple seconds, but that's what the enterprise level cells do. And what these bricks on top of that, really the biggest thing is, versus disk, which is one thing, this is all scalable, flexible, it's growth, it's all within the virtual model, and we can create more bricks as we go, and every time we create more bricks, you get more CPU, more memory, better utilization, and it's all with uncompromised data reduction, so meaning it's all inline, it's uncompromised data, and it never stops. So everything, it's perfect. So that's why the Extreme I/O marketplace is really blowing everybody away. And so let's talk about the actual software of it now that we've talked about the hardware. So you have extreme data protection. So this, actually the biggest thing this whole thing is going to offer a company is security. So the extreme data protection is secure, and like I just said, it's inline, it never stops, it always goes, and it's scalable as companies grow. So on top of that, there's no data duplication. So again, back to this, back to the virtual model, you're doing things quicker, you have more operating systems, more applications, you're reducing the actual amount of shared storage that you need, so there's no data duplication, and what we're seeing is ratios of 5 to 1, 10 to 1, or even 15 to 1 of things that you don't have to duplicate. So think about the cost savings that you're doing on hardware right there. And then on top of that, you have your compression. And compression is exactly what it sounds like. It's actually shrinking the amount of data that you need. So as you scale up, you're compressing the actual amount of data that you need via this flash technology. And the biggest thing about flash is it's rewritable, and you have these writable snaps. By the way, hypervisors. I just thought of that. I apologize. So you have these rewritable snaps. So let's do like a real world example. So think of a company that has 5 terabytes of information. That's a lot of information right there. And then with that writable snaps, they can actually clone. So if they want to have 4 different things, so say it's testing, development, training, or even Q&A. So you now have 5 terabytes, and then you've cloned that 4 times, which means you have a total of 20 terabytes in a traditional model. Well, thanks to Extreme I/O and thanks to these rewritable snaps, you've cloned those, but you haven't used any additional data. So now you're back to that 5 terabytes. Now think of compression. Think about shrinking things down. At a very modest, even 2 to 1 compression rate, you are now hosting 2.5 terabytes of information with everything thanks to the writable clones, the data duplication, the security of the XDP, and you're doing that at all 5 terabytes. So think about this entire EMC story of what they're doing and how they're helping the company. Scalable as they grow, as the marketplace changes. They're adapting, they're staying on top of everything, they're doing it. Flexibility. Think of the flexibility you have when you're just building bricks on top of each other. Agile, same thing. Different companies, different people, everybody can use it. Your agility, higher efficiency. And think about this way. 70% of what a company is spending right now is actually on the current hardware that they have. If we can reduce that by 50%, think of the cost savings that A, you're going to take to your CFO and to your ownership team, or the IT department is, excuse me, and then think of what else you can do with that. And on top of everything, you're taking to the masses, you're becoming an early adopter, and you're beating all your competition. So thanks for letting me share. I hope this helped as far as what the security and what the overall scalability and the efficiency and the way that EMC is helping companies adapt, change, and grow. Thanks again. Take care.